Lodhi Garden, located on Lodhi Road between Safdurjung's tomb and Khan Market in South Delhi, covers an area of 90 acres and is dotted with beautiful monuments and tombs belonging to the Sayyid, Lodhi and Mughal dynasties. With its undulating walking paths and jogging tracks fringed with ancient trees, colorful shrubs and flowering plants, the garden's historical past is evidence of how the city's present encompasses within itself a rich past. Till 1931, these tombs, mosques and other structures stood in what was then called the village of Khairpur, on the outskirts of New Delhi. In 1936, the villagers were moved from Khairpur and a garden was laid out with native and exotic trees and plants around the monuments. It was then called Lady Willingdon Park after the wife of the then British Viceroy. Post-independence, it was more appropriately renamed Lodhi Garden and was redesigned in 1968 by J. Stein, an eminent architect, who was also involved with many other buildings around the Lodhi Garden complex. Some of the buildings are protected by the Archaeological Survey of India and others by the State Department of Archaeology, Delhi. Muhammad Shah belonged to the relatively short-lived Sayyid dynasty which lasted from 1414 to 1451. One of the few architectural remains of this period is the tomb of the third Sayyid ruler, who ruled from 1435 to 1445. It has some distinctive features of its time: an octagonal plan, corner buttresses, decorative plaster finish, corbelled doorways and chhatris on the roof. The graves inside are those of Muhammad Shah and probably other members of his family. Lodhi Garden, located on Lodhi Road between Safdurjung's tomb and Khan Market in South Delhi, covers an area of 90 acres and is dotted with beautiful monuments and tombs. Buzzing with joggers and walkers throughout the year, the area is a heaven for picnickers and for those looking for a sunny patch to warm themselves in winters and a cool retreat in summers, especially in the early hours of mornings and in the evenings. With its undulating walking paths and jogging tracks fringed with ancient trees, colorful shrubs, and flowering plants, the garden's historical past is another evidence of how the city's present encompasses within it a rich past. Lodhi Garden, as we see it today, in its avatar as a landscaped park, was designed in 1936 as a setting for the group of 500-year-old buildings belonging to the Sayyid, Lodhi, and Mughal dynasties. At that time, South Delhi was not like it is today, an important commercial and residential hub of the city. In those early years of the 20th century, the landscape around Delhi could be compared to Rome and its surroundings. Both were cities sparsely populated, strewn with impressive remnants of former empires. In 1931, when New Delhi, the new city designed by Edwin Lutyens, was nearing completion, South Delhi had changed little and was described as a flat country, brown, scrubby and broken, studded with ruins. At that time these tombs, mosques and other structures stood in what was then called the village of Khairpur, on the outskirts of New Delhi. A few years later, in 1936, the villagers were moved from Khairpur and a garden was laid out with native and exotic trees and plants around the monuments. It was then called Lady Willingdon Park after the wife of the then British Viceroy. Post-independence, it was more appropriately renamed Lodhi Garden and was redesigned in 1968 by J. Stein, an eminent architect, who was also involved with many other buildings around the Lodhi Garden complex. The oldest structure in the Lodhi Garden complex is a turret, an Archaeological Survey of India (ASI) protected structure that appears to have been part of a walled enclosure, not evident anymore, which historians believe to have belonged to the Tughlaq period, AD 13201413. Nothing else is known about the other structures here that were also built at this time. Most of the tombs and mosques go back to the time of the Sayyid and Lodhi rulers of Delhi when the area was called Baq-i-Jud in the 15th and early 16th centuries. The Sayyids established their small sultanate in the 15th century, at 1414 to 51, with Khizr Khan as the first ruler, who ruled Delhi for 7 years after the collapse of the Tughlaq dynasty. Khizr Khan was succeeded by his son Mubarak Shah, who ruled for more than a decade after his father's death in 1421. The third ruler, Muhammad Shah, reigned subsequently from AD 1434 to 44. His son Alauddin Alam Shah is known to have built Muhammad Shah's tomb, the oldest and the solitary testimony to the Sayyid dynasty in the garden, now an ASI protected site. The Sayyid dynasty was displaced by the Lodhi dynasty at 1451 to 1526, which originated from an Afghan tribe that had been in India for a long time. Behlol, the first Lodhi king, seized power from the Saids without much resistance and re-established the prowess of the Delhi Sultanate. The Lodhis ruled over an area stretching from the banks of the Indus, over Punjab and the Ganga-Yamuna Doab down to the borders of Bengal, and southwards into central India. The son of Behlol Lodhi, Sikandar Lodhi reigned for 28 years from at 1489 to 1517. His empire extended from Punjab to Bihar and he built his capital at Agra. Sikandara, a short distance from Agra, now well known for the tomb of Akbar which is located there, is named after this great Lodhi king. Sikandar was succeeded by his son Ibrahim. He was defeated at Panipat in 1526 by Babur, who then established Mughal rule in India, bringing an end to the Sultanate era. The Mughal rule, which showed its beginnings in the 16th century, had brought the entire country under its umbrella by early 18th century. It was during the reign of Sikandar Lodhi that the various prominent structures now visible within Lodhi Garden took shape. Sikandar Lodhi's tomb, the Sheesh Gumbad and the Bara Gumbad, ASI protected sites, were all built during this period and hence display a similar architectural language. The buildings here present a unique combination of pre-Sultanate and Sultanate elements of architecture, with most of the construction in stone and plaster. These structures also reveal an advanced understanding of dome construction, using the principle of an arch and the transformation and transition of a square to a circle through use of squinches, a structure set diagonally across the interior angle between two walls to provide a transition from a square to a polygonal or a circular base to construct a dome, and corbels. The structures represent the Sultanate style with traces of intricate patterns and geometric designs of interwoven squares, circles, and lines. Ceramic tiles, plaster work, and painted decoration adorn the domes and outer walls of most of the buildings. Some structures are embellished with pre-Sultanate lotus motifs and Arabic script or typically Hindu-style bells and Sultanate domes. Further into the garden are remains of a watercourse connected to the Yamuna river. Across this waterway, close to Sikandar Lodhi's tomb, is the Atpula, Etpiad, bridge. It is one of the few remains of Emperor Akbar's reign, in Delhi, the others being the Humayun's tomb, Atgah Khan's tomb, at Nizamuddin, and Adham Khan's tomb, around Mehrauli. Also built in the Lodhi Garden during the Mughal period is a gateway along with a mosque set within an enclosed garden and another small mosque near the herbal garden. The gateway and the mosques are all ASI protected sites today. The garden stands today as an island of peacefulness and serenity amidst the mad rush of city life. Timings: 5 a.m. to 8 p.m., summer, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., winter, entry, free. Tomb of Muhammad Shah Sayyid. The only Sayyid building in the Lodhi Garden is the tomb of Muhammad Shah Sayyid. After the ruler's death in at 1451, the tomb was built by his son Alauddin Alam Shah. This handsome building, constructed of Delhi quartzite stone, stands on a high platform. An arched veranda surrounds the central octagonal chamber, which is nearly 15 meters wide, in the middle of which lies the cenotaph of Muhammad Shah, surrounded by several others of his family and close relatives. Each side of the inner chamber has a beam and lintel doorway which originally had perforated screens, with the main entrance to the chamber from the south. The dome of the building is large, 10 meters in diameter, gracefully proportioned, and raised on an octagonal wall that supports the dome above. A cluster of small chhatris, pillared kiosks, surround the main dome, which is crowned with an inverted lotus finial. Above the doors, the shape of the chamber ingeniously transforms from an 8-sided octagon to a 16-sided hexadecagon. The 16 sides then form a circular dome above, the soffit of which is ornamented with incised stucco plasterwork. Patterns and inscriptions from the Quran were carved on wet plaster. After drying, the plaster was painted with many colors, creating a befitting resting place for the kings. The entry to the chamber from the west was later fully walled, constructed of random rubble masonry and finely plastered over. This little mosque is crowned with a brick-vaulted roof with a ribbed pattern and topped with an inverted lotus finial, now hidden behind dense undergrowth. 3 equal-sized, pointed-arched openings on the eastern facade and single-arched openings on the north and the south facade give access to the single-chambered mosque. The inner chamber, measuring approximately 6 meters x 4 meters, has 3 arches on the western wall which serve as the mihrab, or the focus for prayer. The parapet follows a pattern in incised plaster, which is similar to the parapet of Atpula, also a Mughal-era construction. 3 Bada Gumbad serve as a mihrab indicating the direction of Mecca which Muslims face while praying. A few features that distinctive include corner buttresses, corbelled doorways and a cluster of small octagonal chhatris around the main dome give the tomb a distinct Indo-Islamic appearance. Mosque in Herbal Garden. This small 18th century mosque was built by the Mughals. It sits between Muhammad Shah's tomb and the Bada Gumbad, close to the Herbal Garden. The mosque, recently restored, appears to have been located inside an enclosure that has disappeared over time. All that remains of the enclosure is a part of the wall with a bastion that extends from the mosque. Constructed of random rubble masonry and finely plastered over, this little mosque is crowned with a brick-vaulted roof with a ribbed pattern and topped with an inverted lotus finial, now hidden behind dense undergrowth. 3 equal-sized, pointed-arched openings on the eastern facade and single-arched openings on the north and the south facade give access to the single-chambered mosque. The inner chamber, measuring approximately 6 meters x 4 meters, has 3 arches on the western wall which serve as the mihrab, or the focus for prayer. The parapet follows a pattern in incised plaster, which is similar to the parapet of Atpula, also a Mughal-era construction. Bada Gumbad. This imposing building, which is believed to be a gateway because of the absence of any grave, dates back to the Lodhi dynasty. The name literally means the building with a big, Bada, dome, Gumbad. The entrance to the Bada Gumbad is accentuated by a flight of steps rising up to a height of approximately 4 meters from the ground. Towering up to approximately 27 meters and measuring 19 meters x 19 meters, this square structure is one of the biggest and the finest examples of the Lodhi period monuments in Delhi. It is also the first example in Delhi of what is called the full dome, that is, a dome which is a complete semicircle. It rises from a 16-sided drum with each face relieved by niche-shaped panels. Above these arched panels, a lotus bud frieze topped by a molded string course runs all along the dome, which is externally plastered and has a lotus cresting. When seen from outside, the structure would appear to have 2 stories. However, when you enter you will see that it has a single chamber with a magnificent high ceiling. The decoration is minimal with the pale grey quartzite relieved by pink sandstone and grey-black highlights and corbelled doorways. Black marble faced over the spandrel of arches and brackets in red sandstone provide a striking contrast and lend an interesting composition to the entire structure. Adjoining the tomb on the west is a mosque, with a pavilion on the east. This group of buildings is raised on a high platform in the middle of which is an elevated area that might have been a grave. The mosque, measuring 25 meters x 6.5 m, is a fine example of the decorative technique of incised and painted limestone plaster used during the Lodhi period. It is divided into 5 bays with spectacular stucco work of floral motifs and geometric designs over the arches. The 3 central bays are roofed with domes and the 2 end bays with low flat walls. The arches lead into a rectangular prayer hall that is profusely decorated throughout with Quranic inscriptions and conventional foliage on the walls and ceilings. Turret. Historians have reason to believe that this turret, adjacent to gate number 3 of the garden, is perhaps the oldest structure in this ensemble of tombs and mosques. This 6 meters high turret was probably the corner tower of an enclosure that has completely disappeared over time. It is circular in plan with an external diameter of approximately 4 meters and walls as thick as 50 centimeters. The absence of a staircase restricts visitors to the lower level that comprises of a small room enclosure. A jharokha, overhanging enclosed balcony, and 2 arched openings at the upper level would have been ideal for viewing the gardens should there have been a staircase leading to the top level. A concrete plinth around the turret seems a later addition. This turret crowned with a ribbed pattern dome, built in rubble masonry with no signs of plaster, leaves visitors wondering about the purpose of the building. Sheesh Gumbad. Facing the Bara Gumbad is the Sheesh Gumbad, literally, glass dome, so called because the dome and parts of the facade were once completely covered with colored glazed tiles. One can see remnants of its former elegance in the turquoise and cobalt blue tile work on the facade. Architecturally, it follows the pattern of square Lodi tombs with a double-storied appearance, but this building is somewhat different in its ornamentation. Topped with octagonal minarets in the corners, the exterior divides itself into 2 stories with the help of a projecting horizontal cornice. Each story has been ornamented with panels of recessed niches that run above and below the string cores, the upper ones being pierced by small openings, further enhancing the entry. The tomb measures approximately 17 meters on both sides with a hidden staircase along its western wall that leads to the terrace above. Its western wall contains a mihrab, and the remaining 3 sides have 3 openings, the central one being the doorway flanked by 2 arched openings to admit light and air. One of the distinctive features is the row of blue tiles, 9-inch square each, that run across all walls below the central and upper string cores, except the central portion which is adorned with 9 square panels each containing light blue tiles with floral designs. The transition from a square plan to the circular dome is achieved by the use of broad squinches supported on stone pendatives. One of the interesting features is the beautiful carving in plaster between the arched niches and the patterned design along the parapet wall below the dome and along the dome's edges. The ceiling inside the dome is decorated with incised plaster work containing floral patterns and Quranic inscriptions. The central tomb chamber measuring 10 meters on both sides has several graves, presumably belonging to eminent people of Sikandar Lodi's time. Wall gateway and mosque. This small complex built during the late Mughal period comprises of a tri-arched entrance gateway and a small mosque enclosed within a walled garden. The 4 walls of the garden, though broken at various places, still remain. Historical accounts mention that a bhuli, step well, existed in front of the gateway, just outside the enclosure. There is also mention of a small brick tomb in the center of the garden. Today, however, there are no traces of either of these structures. The double-storied gateway was finely plastered over Lakhori brick masonry. A Lakhori brick was slightly thinner and longer than a regular brick, and topped with a brick-vaulted bangaldar roof, a roof style commonly seen in Bengali houses with 4 of its corners bent that fall vertically. The east facade has 3 bays of cusped arches, where the central bay is the doorway, leading into the enclosed garden. The west side of the doorway has staircases at either end going up to the room and terrace above. The single-chambered mosque is rectangular in plan and is crowned with 3 brick domes, with a large central dome and 2 smaller ones on either side. The domes are fluted and topped with an elongated inverted lotus, finial. The entrance facade has 3 bays of pointed arches with the higher central arch projecting out. Inside the mosque, the western wall has 3 arched mihrabs. Evidence of ornate designs painted on the inner walls, plastered Lakhori brick outer walls, and patterned openings are certain distinct characteristics of Mughal construction. The mosque also has a courtyard on its eastern side. Tomb of Sikandar Lodi. The Lodi dynasty was the last ruling dynasty of the Delhi Sultanate and lasted for 75 years. Sikandar Lodi is known to be the second and the most significant ruler of the dynasty who ruled from AD 1489 to 1517. This tomb, enclosed within high walls, lies about 250 meters north of the Sheesh Gumbad on the northwestern corner of Lodhi Garden. The tomb is entered through an elaborate gateway, complete with a raised forecourt on the south where two standing chhatras give the complex a distinct appearance. The walled enclosure measures nearly 7.5 m on either side, with 3.5 m high battlement walls and recessed internal arches. The corners of the enclosure are strengthened by octagonal towers, only one of which now stands. On the west side of the inner walls of the tomb is a wall mosque which appears to be an earlier tomb structure converted to form a grand entrance to the tomb that was constructed later. The octagonal tomb is quite similar in appearance to Muhammad Shah's tomb, except for the missing chhatris on the roof. The upper portion of the dome is decorated with a distinct pattern in plaster, and the corners of the 16-sided drum base takes the shape of a pillar which then rises to form circular minarets. Its inner chamber is surrounded by a lovely veranda of arches with carved sandstone brackets. 7 openings lead into the inner space where the tomb inside retains some well-preserved and beautifully designed glaze-style decorations, painted stucco work, and a single grave. Etpula, one of the most fascinating structures of the garden complex, is this 16th century Mughal construction to the east of Sikandar Lodi's tomb, along gate number 4 of the garden. The picturesque 8-pier bridge was built during Akbar's reign by Nawab Bahadur to span a tributary of the Yamuna that probably met up with the Barhapula Nulla canal further south. This was perhaps a part of the river system that drained the South Delhi area and fed the river Yamuna. This stream must have dried up at some point, and part of it has now been replaced by a man-made reservoir located towards the north of the garden, which is also in close proximity to a recently added duck pond. This beautifully curving bridge built diagonally across the stream was originally known as Khairpur Ka Pul, after the village of Khairpur in which it was located. The present name, Atpula, is derived from the 8 piers nearly 2 meters in thickness that support the arches of the bridge. The piers support 7 arches, with the central arch being the largest and the others decreasing in span from the center. A circular fluted pilaster in dressed stone, topped by an octagonal minaret, rises from the middle of each pier, which is made of irregular courses of dressed stones. This bridge, spanning nearly 40 meters, is topped with a dressed stone carved parapet which till today maintains a reasonable shape. Other places of interest along with its ancient legacy, meandering walkways, and sweeping greens, the garden also includes a few distinct features which aim to preserve and provide a natural, habitable environment to various plant species. The National Bonsai Park, entered through a rustic gateway, presents a fascinating collection of bonsai to the visitors of Lodhi Garden. This area, slightly buried under the plinth, lies near gate number 1 adjoining the exclusive garden restaurant, Lodhi. A butterfly park and herb garden surround the Mughal mosque on either side, located towards the north of Muhammad Shah's tomb. This garden maintains nearly 35 species of exotic plants laid across a vast open space. Further north, towards the walled garden facing the wall mosque and gateway, is the rose garden, planted with a variety of beautiful roses. In 1968, J.A. Stein restructured the garden and constructed a glass house within the premises, near gate number 1, which itself is an architectural treat to look at. It is also extensively used for cultivation and exhibition of different variety of plants found within the Lodhi Garden.